Talks channel, and then we start.
We've come here to tell the United Nations that the land they mortgaged to Cameroon will be recaptured by the brilliant people of Ambazonia.
Right. Yes.
That the complicity they had with the United Kingdom will be dampened. That your spirit, the indomitable spirit that has led you from your homes right here to this plaza, will not be extinguished by the banality of evil installed in our homeland. That the spirit that has awakened from the dusty streets of Mutengene to the alleys of Bamenda will not be squashed by the brutality of Cameroon, the complicity of the United Nations, and the utter silence of the United Kingdom. For the blood of our people spilled for those who've gone before us. We stand like valiant soldiers to lay our lives to ensure that their blood wasn't spilled in vain. That they didn't die in vain. That the mothers who screamed for their daughters, the fathers who are on shore where their kids are detained, wouldn't mourn in vain. I have come here as a soldier of the revolution. I have come here to assure you that this is just the first step to internationalize our struggle, to make the international community understand our pain, the pain of the mothers, the yearning of the fathers, and the doubts plastered on the faces of our kids. That the land, the 43 square meter land that we own, will not be mortgaged, will not be taken by any other country. That we are ready, that we will fight block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood, until the day, as the last speaker said, we will be able to install a government in Boya, a government for the Ambazonians, a government by the Ambazonians, that is going to speak for us, fight for us, make treaties for us. We are not going to allow an alien dominating power from Yaoundé to decide our future, decide the curriculum of our education, decide which language we speak in our courts. And if the lawyer said no, right from here in New York, we send a message to Yaoundé that we are ready for the gendarmes, the bee, and all the evil spirit that have been installed in our homeland. That we will give our life for a free Ambazonia. That if this country was built on the blood of people from distant places, we are ready as soldiers of the revolution to make sure that one day, just one day, we have a homeland to call our own, a place to dwell in peace, a place where we as a people can decide our destiny. You've just got started. It's a long journey. Liberation is not a walk in the park, and I want you to be ready. Do not believe soothsayers who say you are just going to have it on a platter of gold. It's going to be a hard struggle. But the footprints you leave here today will be followed by those after us. They will know we were here. They will know we fought for them. They will know we died for them. They will know we did our part. And so they will use the same road map to be able to inhabit a free country. If that's the only thing we can give our children, let's do it for Mother Ambazonia. I want to thank your leadership. I want to thank all those who've made it possible for me.
Fellow Ambazonians, good morning, good afternoon, good evening across the globe. This is Ambazonia Geopolitical Analysis. I'm joined by my able learned colleague, the chair of the National Executive Council for AGOVC. I want to thank you, comrade, for always taking up your precious time for us to continue to educate our people. In a revolution, we always say that education is the key. It's a gateway to liberating your people. Ambazonia liberation is not just tied to Ambazonia. It's interlinked to the struggle, the collective struggle of the Black race. It is interlinked to the collective struggle of Africa. So that's why at times we always come up to educate our people, to show that our struggle in Ambazonia is a collective struggle. We are not just fighting for Ambazonia, we're fighting a battle for our race, for the race of our people. It is not a battle that's fought in a silo. It is all interconnected. That is why you and I, we take the time up of to really come and try to educate our people on what is actually happening, the current happenings in Africa, how it impacts us, because the liberation of Ambazonia, what we also vie for is for our own brothers in Africa to recognize us, to see where we are coming from. And we try to speak, looking at what is happening to them, and so see how we can draw some parallels in what is happening in our own country with the other struggles that's going on across Africa. So I want to welcome you, my comrade, and I want to thank you. I know you are a library. You have some high level of understanding, global understanding. That's why I always find it to me it's really a privilege to sit with you and have this conversation. Welcome, comrade.
Thank you very much. And thank you once again for having me on your platform. Whenever I come here, I feel out of death, sitting in the presence of a luminary like yourself. But it's a pleasure and an honor for me to be here.
Thanks very much, comrade. I know it's been a while since we last touched on the geopolitical analysis of what's going on across the world, what's happening in our continent. There's a lot of things unraveling in our continent. And the key, I can call it, the key to the genuine liberation of Africa, we are seeing it emerging in West Africa. We are seeing it emerging in the AES nations. Something we've never dreamt of in this generation is really happening in that area. When we hear of the AES, we have to continue to draw our people's attention to what is happening there and the implication of their, what they are doing. Also in regards to our revolution and in regards to a general liberation of the Black race and Africa. So can you really update us or highlight, just give your own thoughts, your own take on the confederacy that was officially signed in Niger recently? What is the implication of that confederacy? And how can you interconnect that to the liberation of Africa and our own liberation as Ambazonians? Because I believe that there's some interconnectivity between what is happening in the AES nations and what we are facing in Ambazonia. So I want to leave the floor open to you to talk more about the confederacy, the implications of the complete confederacy, what it means, and also the reaction of ECOWAS, the so-called ECOWAS, the Western tool meant to oppress and uphold the status quo of, undermining the Black race, specifically sub-Saharan regions. So let me leave it open to you. What is the confederacy and what does it mean to us as a people and maybe to a certain extent Ambazonia? We heard about it recently, so let me put it on your desk.
Yeah, thank you very much once again, comrade. That is a very, very important and really good question. I would like to begin that by making a reference to a country like Zambia. If you look at very small countries during the partition of Africa, a lot of countries were partitioned into very, very tiny pieces. And with those small countries, small tiny pieces, it is very easy to control them. A country like the United States having discussions with the president, or a country like Zambia, Togo, you can see people have referred to that as people boxing below their weight. So having said that about the country of Zambia, the West Zambia produces a lot of bauxite and lithium. The West had promised Zambia the creation of a railway for the longest time now. The railway was to go through Angola and then exit onto the Atlantic Ocean, in which they would then collect all these resources and move it to the West. But that had generally not happened for a very long time. Now China came in and was looking to building that railway, had contracts signed, and then the West went back and tried to make promises which they had not previously kept. The
Okay.
reason I'm bringing that up is if you look at these small countries, it is very easy for them to come in and fool them or build military presence so they can overlook or threaten other small countries. This became the impetus for what I think had been advised by the Russians, who had been advising these countries from Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. These are countries that have decided to take their destiny into their hands. Other countries that may have wanted to do that, I'm sure that would have had the support, especially countries like Ethiopia would have had the support of the Russians or even the Chinese.
Okay.
So I'm sure the Russians advised them that I'm saying that the Russians, just because the Russians now have some military advisory presence in these countries, providing
Hmm.
technical support, military technical support. They're advising them on the use of some of the weapons that these countries have purchased from the Russians. Now, they went on and created this. They signed this Liptako Goma, which is the agreement that binds the three countries together in order to be able to protect themselves
Okay.
from any major military incursion. This
Yep.
happened especially during the time when the General Chani of Niger had just taken power and was getting threatened by ECOWAS. So by bringing these countries together, advised probably by Russia,
Hmm.
it was important to do so to give the countries strength in order, because fighting by themselves, individually by themselves, it would have been difficult. So a president like the president of thank you for that. A president like the president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore, went out and spoke very openly and pronounced the fact that any attack on Niger at the time was an attack on all of them. So by
Yep.
giving them that strength, together with this military support that the Russians had provided at the time, gave them some level of power to be able to withstand any kind of onslaught that would have come to Niger. Niger was most important to them at the time, just simply because of the importance that the role that Niger plays in France by providing electricity. They refused
Hmm.
to acknowledge it, but more than a third of French uranium was coming from Niger. There are several different extraction grounds within Niger, some of which they've already emptied and closed because the resources on the uranium in that area has already been removed. So that tells you just how much of uranium or resources they were getting from Niger. That explains the bigger reason why they were not willing to just let go of Niger, and even all the way through to today. You ask about implications. All the way through to today, the situation remains very tense, even though these countries are struggling to get on their feet. As you're aware, a lot of the people that have from Gaddafi that have tried to get out of the control of the West, they have either witnessed leadership changes, like a change of presidents through coups or direct outright attack. You have a situation which we'll get into shortly regarding Haiti, um,
Hmm.
where if they send out mercenaries to come in and take out an elected president. Um, Whenever those situations do come up and they do not agree with you, when I say they, in this case, I'm referring to the hegemon. Um,
Yes.
when the hegemon does not agree with you, then they look for all means to either destabilize. If destabilization is not going very fast, they they use your opponents and sometimes even arm them against you and then create military coups. So the situation there remains very tenuous in terms of the fact that the hegemon hasn't given up yet, even though they were kicked out of Mali and Niger very recently. They did not leave. They moved their resources over to Ivory Coast. So when your enemy moves closer to your neighborhood, it doesn't mean they've given up on you yet. So there are still situations where somebody like Ibrahim Traore has gone through over 13, 14
attempted
attempted
assassinations.
assassination. Thank you. So which still remains very tenuous now. Having said that, nevertheless, they continue to build their capacity, because first, you can't really, in a situation in countries like this and in situations like this, you cannot really build your economy when you're under threat of
Yep.
invasion at all
Yeah.
times. So the focus, even though they're doing other things right now, but the focus has remained to strengthen their military, strengthen their to build a security apparatus that will be able to protect them, to allow this community to grow economically, because by providing that security structure, then the economy can be able to take off without the fear of foreign invasion. Now, the other aspect of this too is that it has given, previously you had an army like that of the United States, and most European armies that were being looked at as almost as being invisible, like nobody could touch them. If you look at the U.S. military right now, they formed this whole coalition of I forget the name, that went to the Mediterranean, and also were trying to prevent the Houthis from.
You're talking about progressive coalition of what? Something of that sort.
Yes.
Fancy words that they use to commit crimes.
They have not been able to even to be able to defeat the Houthis. So,
Yep.
and what the Houthis recently had done was one of the ships among their battle fleet, the General Eisenhower, was hit, but they refused. They did not. Basically, they just turned around. They turned the ship around and left without really acknowledging the fact that it had.
And then the West went mute on that.
Went mute on it.
Yeah.
So all of that is to say that it has these brothers, these leaders, have given other, not just African leaders, but other individuals or presidents of other countries, that they can really do this. They can fight back. And you've seen this going on across the globe, in which other countries have started to resist the hegemon, knowing that the hegemon at this time, it's mostly a backing dog. So with that said, there is also a bigger picture that is happening, not just within that region, but it goes beyond. The bigger picture being that the war in Ukraine, we're not really going into the details, but just the implications on how that connect to what is going on within this region. It was apparent that at some point you cannot be the sole authority in the world forever. That at some point, any empire that has risen had fallen. You had the Ottoman Empire at one point. You had the Roman Empire at one point. You even had the British Empire, where they said the sun never sets in the British Empire. That too disappeared. So now you have the American Empire. So there is hope here among what these three generals are doing in terms of this, in the terms of the fact that Europe right now has focused its resources a lot within what is going on between Ukraine and Russia. Resources in terms of military resources, and that has gone on to weaken Europe economically, because all of the trade that they used to do, the cheap oil that they used to get from Russia, is no longer coming due to all the sanctions that they sanctioned themselves. And because of that, that has weakened Europe. And the hegemon itself, the leader of it has become weak itself. So with that, it has permitted these entities, these countries, to begin to lay the foundation for what could become a bigger, because by them setting up this confederacy against ECOWAS, they've proven that you can actually speak against the West and or even go against them to try to build your own economy, build your country, and still be successful at it. So let me speak a little bit about ECOWAS.
Yes,
ECOWAS,
yes. I wanted to break this particular. There's now the ECOWAS and the AES. So what do you see coming out of this all disguised, corrupt Western tool of oppression called ECOWAS? because there's a couple of things I want to touch on ECOWAS, touch base with on ECOWAS. So what's the dynamics now between the AES and ECOWAS? Can you just dive a little bit into that? Because
Right,
it's unfolding in front of us.
Absolutely, it is one of the greatest times to be alive on the planet, to see this seismic changes happening.
Yes.
Because the level of change that is happening right now could have happened within 100 years, but it is happening just within a very short, within the last 5 years. The level of change that has happened in technology, in control, in the shift in power structure of the world and all of that, just within a very short space of time. So it's incredible. The way that the hegemon has worked previously, they had sorted the way, like say, the creation of the European Union was not just to help Europe coordinate its activities. It was equally, when you have a situation where you bring a lot of people together and then you have a head that you're controlling that head, then basically you're controlling all of the people easily. So what had previously, I mean, if you look at the way that the ECOWAS operates, NATO has an office within the ECOWAS structure. Not only that, the European Union also has a representative within the ECOWAS structure. And there was one meeting. There's an image of one meeting that was held where they were planning during that time. They were planning what to do about the situation in Niger. Most of the participants in that meeting were not Africans. They were all Europeans. That tells you who is behind the scenes pushing these buttons. Now, I wanted to set the stage for that first, so that way we get a clear understanding of the fact that ECOWAS is just the name, umbrella name, but the individuals that are behind the scenes setting the agenda, setting the objectives of ECOWAS are not necessarily people that look like you and I. They are mostly the African presidents that are members of the leaders of ECOWAS have individuals behind them that are pushing a particular set of agenda. So by them using the umbrella organization of ECOWAS, it was very easy to control all this huge territory of more than 14 states, including perhaps Nigeria and Ghana, so about 16 states. Controlling 16 states under the umbrella of ECOWAS. So it was very easy for them.
And besides that, sorry, I'm not cutting out. That is one of the biggest global resource basket.
Exactly.
West Africa. Yeah.
Exactly. And especially this whole region.
Yeah.
All of these countries have some aspects of very, very highly strategic resources, highly demanded strategic resources, like perhaps even gold and
cocoa. Also, the best cocoa in the world comes from West Africa.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
The best cocoa in the world. They grow cocoa in Latin America, but the quality of cocoa in the world, the best quality, that's been hijacked and conserved and dominated by the West. Everything goes to the West. Is in West Africa. Our territory, not even like Cameroon, our territory, we produce about 4 to 5% of cocoa globally. Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Ghana. That's the best cocoa bean in the world comes from this region. And all is in the hands of under the ECOWAS umbrella.
And some of these countries, they were told that they couldn't grow certain types of plants just because of the fact that they were located in the tropics.
Yes, and they were looking. And then, for instance, now we hear right in they are growing grapes, they are growing apple, they are growing wheat. But those were things that we were told that could never grow in our region. You get it? That's how rich, abundantly rich we are. You get it? Exactly. That's why they come and they hold. The truth is this: some of these things that we talk about, though under the context of Ambazonia, if you don't have a literate and an educated population, they will not understand what is actually happening. They won't see the danger from afar. They'll keep on playing on the mindset that they have set the struggle they have set for you to keep on operating a particular silo. Meanwhile, the danger is coming from afar. You can't see it from afar. Sorry for interrupting you. Just close to your topic on we're on the issue of AES and ECOWAS.
ECOWAS, yeah, no worries at all. Please, please chime in each time, because there is a lot of information that we might miss, some that are very pertinent to this conversation, and it is always good for our people to be aware. So going back to ECOWAS, that is how their structure was, and they were basically a tool of the hegemon to continue to control the African people, especially that region. Not just that region, but generally the African people. Now you had a situation where these other countries, Mali, Mali, Niger, and am I missing Burkina Faso? So you had a situation where they had basically created a coup d'etat, and because they had the support of their people, they were successful at it, and now they still have tremendous support. I mean, I could say that the support that
overwhelming support,
overwhelming support from their people. They have been given the mandate in that regard to continue to do what they are doing. Now they created an organization between themselves, not just for the Confederacy, but to be, it's very difficult for you to touch on the aspect of monetary union that is separate from the CFA. So what I've noticed is that they haven't touched on that aspect yet.
Maybe I'm working on it.
But I'm thinking that what is probably going to happen, that it would be some form of them incorporating themselves into what BRICS brings. I don't know if that makes sense. So when the BRICS currency comes in, somehow I think that they're gonna at that time peg their currency directly to the BRICS. To the extent that it would not be a direct, because right now if they went ahead and released a new currency, it would be very difficult for them, and the kind of opposition and onslaught of the hegemon that will come against them because of that would be too heavy. So I'm thinking that they are taking their time such that they would find a way to peg their currency towards the BRICS currency, so that way it is very difficult for the hegemon to lay hands on it or to control it, or even to accuse them of anything else, because then they'll be relying on that currency for the functioning of their state.
Let's still keep on educating our people. This is the same thing that happened to Togo. When Togo refused to be part of the CFA France, what did France do? France flooded the economy with counterfeits, pumped in money, and destroyed whatever they created. So we should be cognizant and learn from history what the colonialists are capable of doing. As because people, what you are saying, I think is a good strategy. Your suspicion and assumption is surely probably what is coming out of BRIC, for them to be able to have something to peg it on, to peg the currency onto. And because some people ask, what might be holding them back from creating their own currency immediately and running by it? But these people are relentless. They are relentless in going after you. So I believe that is a possibility that they are trying to avoid, because they can decide to destroy economy by flooding counterfeit or flooding the same money and creating inflation, and destroy. And that's the same thing that they did in Zimbabwe. That's what actually was happening in Zimbabwe. Yeah.
Exactly.
Where you were carrying a box of money to buy a piece of bread, they flooded the currency with counterfeit. Destroyed everything. There is something that, sorry, I'm not taking you to, we need to be educating our people on some of these things. You see, when you go on the internet, you hear this stupid Western, some people with their one-sided mind. They always make the comment that, look at Zimbabwe. They could not run the country after Mugabe took over the country. But Mugabe was running that country very well. Right. They started using sanctions on them.
Even given the condition under which he was operating.
Yes, and people fail to understand one thing. Once your economy is stuck to the SWIFT financial system, the plug of every financial transaction that you have at the international level is shut down.
Exactly, which means
Zimbabwe had about,
you cannot trade or you cannot trade on a beyond
you
your
can't do,
your national
yes,
boundaries.
yes, you cannot do anything. And let's understand that's what they did to Zimbabwe. They froze their money in London, about $3 billion that they froze there. It's lying there. When they turn it off from a SWIFT currency, disrupt economy, you can't do any form of trade. Do you know that is killing a people? But people will come out and make this so simple, flimsy. Oh, look at Zimbabwe, they cannot run their currency, their country. Black people cannot run a country. Look at what happened in Zimbabwe. No. And you know very well that when we talk, we have to let people understand the tools that they can use in harming the economy. Taking you off the SWIFT financial system, or using clandestine means of flooding the economy with counterfeit. And you know that's exactly the tool of taking you off the SWIFT financial system. Russia had sensed it. They took them off immediately out of SWIFT financial system. They came up with a backup that they already had. And they could be able to activate and continue the economy. Because that's the biggest weapon that they have in the entire globe to take you off from the SWIFT financial system.
Yeah, they did that to Russia, and not only that, they went ahead and froze over $300 billion of their money in that is in Europe, and then they are now threatening to seize those funds as if this is now piracy, this is theft, highway robbery, and
it's
to seize that money. And then what Saudi Arabia that we're hearing that Saudi Arabia has told them is warning that if they seize those funds from Russia, then they will sell all of their investments in terms of their bond purchases in Europe. So, and they currently have about $800 billion to $900 billion worth of those, which means that if they did sell those, that would, at a time when the European economy is struggling, that would have a huge impact on Europe as well.
So
and it was not only them, and they've done that too to Iran. Iran resorted to trading. I mean, to trading its oil on the backyard.
Essentially, the black market.
Yeah, exactly.
But you see the consequences of the Ukraine war. It has caused Iran to emerge now, finding itself now from the depth of where it was kept, and Iran is doing trading now with other countries freely because the hook that they had on them is gone.
Extremely well. Or you triggered a point here about Iran that I mean, we're going to come back to ECOWAS, and our viewers need to bear with us here that we are doing analysis based on data that we have out there, and sometimes these data points will change. And when they change, our assessments too will also change. But based on what we are doing here, we're doing analysis, assessment, and bringing awareness based on those data sets. So what Iran had recently, I think it was about a week ago, the SEO meeting. It's a security organization that held its meeting in somewhere in Russia. I forget the name of that city. So Iran is a part of that pack. Turkey is a member. Russia obviously is a member. India is a member, and you have. So what the reason for which these guys had come together? That this was formed somewhere around, I think, 2001, the SEO organization. So they had noticed that, if you remember, when Russia had basically in 1991, when Russia was basically damaged, they moved from the SWIFT system and all of that, they collapsed. The USSR collapsed, and Dick Cheney at the time sent representative. He was a member. Dick Cheney was a vice president of the United States. For some of those that don't remember, he was at the time an executive in Halliburton, and they knew that around the area in Kazakhstan there was a huge deposit of oil, even larger than what we find in Saudi Arabia. So they sent individuals, representatives from Halliburton, to go investigate over there, and they went there. They looked at it. They did all the feasibility studies. So what they end up doing is they created. That is when they reach out to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia reaches out to Bin Laden, and Bin Laden then they created this company, which Bin Laden supplied the Mujahideen,
Moi, 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 moi.
Mujahideen, yeah,
Mujahideen,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Bin Laden supplied the Mujahideen forces,
Mhm,
and the CIA supplied weapons, and they were going after the Russians. They fought the Tajikistan. They created war in Chechnya,
mhm,
and just to destabilize the whole, create chaos. And they
mhm.
function very well in chaos, because when you do all you create these chaotic situations, then you can be able to then come in and
And
start
exploit.
exploiting the
Yeah,
resources.
yeah.
So at that time, they built a pipeline that left from Tajikistan, and the only way that they could go to territories to exit off of the Mediterranean were through territories that they have influence, that was within their orbit of control.
Mhm,
And in that case, um, there was Tajikistan, then there was Georgia. If you
mhm.
remember, there was a war with
Yeah,
Tbilisi
yeah, yeah.
in,
Russia, Georgia, yeah.
in Georgia there, and then they passed the pipeline through Austria to through Turkey into the Mediterranean to supply the West. So I bring this story up just to state that this recent conference that was held, they've
Yes,
realized that they cannot really create any kind of stability, because right
mhm,
now they're trying to create another war in around Serbia, and
mhm,
another one in Georgia, a second one in Georgia. They
yeah.
realized that that whole northern Caucasus cannot
Mhm,
be stable without having some kind of a security apparatus which binds all of those countries, and also to force, um, that not force, but also to encourage the stability of China's Road and Belt Initiative.
initiative,
So
yeah.
they created this security pact, which they've now, with all these other countries that are members, that has a stated objective to make sure to contribute forces. They will all train together to make sure that there are no revolts, there are no, I mean, so um, Iran, instead of all the isolation that they've been through, like you said, they are now, thanks to the war that is all going on in Ukraine and everything that is going on, they are now members of not just this SCO security pact, that they've now become members of the
BRICS.
new development bank. They're members now
Mhm,
of BRICS. They're now members. So now it's created some kind of a pact, which we were talking about confederation and confederacy and getting together and creating these unions to be able to
mhm,
withstand the powers of your opposition. So which brings us back to the ECOWAS stuff,
mhm,
where these guys in the Sahel region have gotten themselves together to create such. So that's to mirror all of such organizations. So I'm thinking that somehow they're getting some of these instructions, or at least some of the advice to from
sure,
institutions
sure.
like Russia.
Russia,
So
China.
with the idea too that, if you notice, even Idris, what is his name, not Idris Deby, but Idris Deby, the president of Chad, I think it's Gabi Deby or something like that.
Yeah, they
Um,
don't. Yeah, the
even
former president's son. Yeah.
so yeah, so even him too right now has become, he's now no longer listening directly to the West. He's
He's
been
gone
very
to Russia. I think he's gone to Russia twice.
is exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. So now, if you put together the ECOWAS organization and the organization of the Sahel states,
Yeah.
they declared very outrightly, especially Ibrahim Traore, that never again would they become, because somehow they feel the ECOWAS organization thought that these guys would somehow decide to come back, and they
Hmm.
even open windows like you could be in under sanctions but still participate, somehow trying to woo them.
Yeah.
um, but they have said very openly that we would never be members of the Sahel region. They were, I mean, the members of the ECOWAS. There was also an organization that was known as the JSENG, which is the G5, which was
Yeah.
made up
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
three
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
them together with Chad, which was under the French tutelage. But
Hmm.
by three of them coming out and then two left, basically that organization doesn't exist
Dead.
anymore. The French could
Yeah.
not do anything anymore.
Hmm.
So that is why there is so much hate against them. But these guys, one of the lessons and the implications that they've set for us all is the fact that not only the strength that they've given to all of these other the voice that they've given to all of these other Africans and African presidents, but also the kind of structure that it is. You form the three of them.
Developing.
They've made room for other countries to join if they indeed
Joint.
wanted.
Yes.
So which might in effect create an avenue for, because it's very difficult to go to ECOWAS right now and ask NATO to leave, or ask the French to shut down the office that they have in ECOWAS that controls ECOWAS. So instead, create another organization separate and independent from them, with your own rules and regulations, with your own, and have them operating, and then have other members join, and at that point you basically render the other ECOWAS non-functional. When
Yes.
and I see in long term, when these countries finally launch their own currency, and countries that are not members of the Sahel trio will now start seeking membership, because they would have seen how well these countries are doing.
Are doing.
Especially,
Yes.
comrade, you can even speak to this. You saw the vision that someone like Traore was setting for his country, and even acknowledge the fact that right now we do not have the money to fund some of the road constructions, but then the little that we have, we're going to make sure that there is every road that links all of our territory, all of our regions together. So
Yeah.
that is just a basis for a start. And
Yeah, you know, he said something. He said recently, just touching on that. He said, "Can you imagine countries? Can you imagine that these Sahel countries were facing all this high level of terrorism? There are countries, multinational from the West, exploiting their resources. And when he asked those countries that I need weapons, I'm buying it, I'm not begging, they refuse to give him weapons, weakening his military strength, because but you don't know where those jihadists and those terrorists are getting weapons from, heavy weapons. They even outpower the national military, but then they have people, Westerners, exploiting their resources and taking them for free. He said recently he is going to shut down nearly all those people and send them out of the country and take over those resources, because it's theirs and it's meant for the Burkina people. And that's where he's going to generate the wealth to run his country. He said it openly. And he went ahead and said that he knows for sure that, recently, I think this is not IMF, his World Bank approached him to give him loans to run some of his projects. He refused. He said, "No, I don't need it. We will generate the money in our own way, in our own form. We don't want your money. You come and give us conditions." Very soon, giving us conditions on how to run the finances. Because if you go across the world, you will not see 70% of projects funded by the IMF and the World Bank, they have not worked for the developing countries, because the terms and conditions that they give them are terms and conditions that bankrupt those countries. Case in point, we saw it in Liberia, Cameroon. We live to see it. When they gave them loans, they forced them with loans, and they came up with structural adjustment plan and rigged that country completely. So ransacked Liberia, Cameroon completely. And we were victims to that. You get it? So he says, I'm going to take, he openly said, I'm taking all those, I'm re-evaluating all the licenses for those countries that have refused to give us, that they are in there, they have multinationals extracting our resources, and they are refusing to give us weapons to fight and protect our people. I'm re-evaluating all those contracts, and we're taking those ones that we can and run it, because it's our property. It's ours. You cannot stay in our country and you refuse to give us weapons to fight the danger that's facing us, but you are sucking and ripping us dry. He said it openly, without mincing words. So him refusing to even take money from the World Bank or those is it IMF, he knows where the money is going to come from. They have the resources. That's one of the richest parts of the world. Those trio, if you look at it very well, we have Mansa Musa. He was ruining that empire. The part that that empire that affected the gold market from when he went to Mecca in 12th and 13th century. That area has tons upon tons of gold. So he said that the money, though they'll ask where, he said the Burkina people have to work hard. They have to be a builder in this country. You don't need to like him, but look at the policy that's going to improve and grant them their own sovereignty. You get it? So touching on that, he comes up very boldly and says it. Even though we will make sure that we look for the means, because we have the resources, we have the capability to transform our country from within ourselves, from us. We are going to do everything possible. He's arming his forces, every young man in his country, in right to the villages. He's preparing, he's arming everybody. Because the only way you can guarantee security, you can guarantee a progress, is by being sick. By having security. He told a story recently of how they came and raped. I don't know if you have watched this video. They came and raped someone's wife in front of him over and over, and then he took his son away, cut that man's hand, and the wife ended up committing suicide. And that's what those terrorists are doing to them. And then he asked the question, do we allow these people to walk into your houses always and do that to you people? Or do you fight? And he said, even the guy that cut his hand, he said, I don't have hands, but I will fight. And I want my vengeance. And he says that is very rampant in those areas where those terrorists have been coming to, and that's what they have been doing. They are seeing that they are facing hell from the Sahel region. Talking about that, recently, I don't know if you heard about one of the highest terrorists that the US was looking for, and they even placed the bounty on his head, was taken out by the Sahel forces in Mali. He's Abdel something. He was killed there in Mali. That's how strong those guys are. Look at how they're wiping out all the terrorists in that area. They have improved and increased security in that area. And the question is this: ECOWAS drove them out of it. They took them out of ECOWAS. So why is ECOWAS forcing them to come back? They are coerced them, they refuse. They used ultimatum, they refuse. They say, we don't want to come back. So why should you be forcing us to come back? We don't want to. And they are seeing progress. During this era, when they imposed that sanction on them, those three countries, they blocked those ECOWAS countries blocked their ports, electricity, everything. Where they shot them was Morocco. Said, I'll give you a part of my ports for you to build, for you to come and use and do your good, because they are landlocked countries. That's when all the ECOWAS plot collapsed. Then you saw Pascal Talon running and begging and saying no, and because he was losing billions.
Right. And Macron got so angry with the king of Morocco too.
Okay. And then this guy from Togo, he went and also negotiated his deal with Mali. He said, no, I'm not there, because if that thing goes through effectively, then because the point is that these ECOWAS countries, they believe that since these countries are landlocked, their joker they have is shutting them off from the coastal regions and then strangulating them. But with that particular leeway out that Morocco has given them, it collapses all the intentions,
Exactly.
So I want to ask you, what do you see with this guy, the new guy in Senegal, and his interaction with the AES nation? So any idea what is going on with them? Because he's been trying to go around those places.
I think he's a sellout. Well, let's start from how he becomes president, because France will not allow you to become a president over Macky Sall if they have not already had some kind of a prior agreement. Macky Sall had locked these guys up, Bassirou and his vice president, and to have to just release them and allow them to run for office. That was just even though everybody had applauded Macky Sall for that, but we all know that that's not something that was done by his own volition. So I think there was some kind of a negotiation in which Macky Sall and the French agreed together with the with the Senegalese president right now, Bassirou Faye, to what the expectations will be. So now they were using him because recently he actually just came back from Paris. He actually just came back from France, essentially kissing the ring.
Ah,
Then they were
really?
using, yeah, they were using him, and he was the one that had gone to plead on behalf of ECOWAS to
ECOWAS.
to try to convince Ibrahim Traore, the president of Niger and the president of Mali,
Yep.
to reconsider their position. Because if you remember in the last speech that Ibrahim Traore provided, he actually was talking about how they're using some house slaves right now to come and plead for them
Yeah, 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 yeah. He said that.
to join. I mean, in as much as there is an understanding of these are young African leaders that I
Hmm.
think that have a general understanding among themselves, and they do. But for the sake of country, they can't just sell out. And I believe that genuinely, the president of Senegal wanted them to come and join ECOWAS, and he's looking for a way that they can together try to reform ECOWAS. But you cannot reform an organization that is in under the grip of the hegemon. The hegemon
Yes.
has never been one to just let go or to
No,
make
no,
compromises,
no.
because making compromises, they see it as a path towards them relinquishing their control. So
Yes.
even though he had said that if they tried that and it did not work, then they too were going to withdraw and actually look into creating a currency. But I still think that that was a statement in line with what Ruto says, where basically you present one picture and then you do something in the contrary. So
Interesting. You make a very good point. I tend to believe that there was an understanding for those guys because the fear of the hegemon, their fear was that they might lose Senegal because of the pressure on the streets. And they had foreseen that letting it for a while will cause them to lose Senegal as they've lost those three AES nations. They had to come to an agreement that, okay, let these guys go in, but on these terms. You can
exactly,
talk game, but we want to see you walk the talk.
exactly. The, I
We
mean,
want to
the,
see,
the the anger on the street was real.
yes,
Yeah.
it was real. So, it is this game that they play that people should be very wise. They either pretend to see with you, but still have control. You know, they see with you and still have control at the end of the day of what happens there. You make a good point. I've not seen any technical shift in Senegal that can show that they are walking from they're from the streets. I've not seen it. And you make a good, because that's the point that you good point I made, because we have to start seeing people's actions, not talk. You can talk a good talk, but your action is telling you something else. So you trying to even call these guys out, because there are two of them in West Africa that you see how they have tamed them. Mamadou Doumbouya, you don't hear much about him. He's been emasculated. You don't see him being. I was expecting that this AES was supposed to extend into Gambia, but that was a controlled takeover.
He was
I,
trained by He was trained by U.S. forces.
he was trained by U.S.
U.S.
forces,
forces.
married to a French gendarme or captain or colonel or what. His wife is is from the French military. You get it. So those are lost causes. You don't see them acting on behalf of their people from the way they came in. I thought Dumbuya was supposed to be a part of this AES, but he shocks me, And then you see these young guys in Senegal, they are talking a good game, but you don't see drastic action, because you can't. They should not be naive to understand what ECOWAS is about. They should not be naive. Then you're trying to pull these guys back into ECOWAS. If you want to be something and be for the people, join the AES, because that's an organic organization from the people, not being controlled from outside, like you rightfully said. They had used ECOWAS as a bulldog in attacking anybody that wants to go against the hegemon or go against the play script.
Yeah, look at what
Gambia.
happened. Look at what happened in Gambia
Yeah,
with the previous president. There,
yeah,
they used ECOWAS to take it to remove him from office.
Jesse. Yeah,
The same thing they were trying to do with the Niger, and even if Mali and Burkina Faso had
did
not
not
come to
stand
the
and
aid.
they meant business. That's what would have happened. So we should be looking at what you're right. When you tell me that you don't, I mean, these guys are people not, it's good to, you know, take a closer look at them and you don't think that they are talking the game. They can talk the game, but they're not acting. Those guys from Senegal. Much talk. Okay, let's before we now we see two dynamics happen occurring in West Africa, the AES that are for their people, and we have ECOWAS that is a tool utilized by the West to continue to suppress us and get right deep into the skin of exploiting our resources. And we know for sure that the sneaky, creepy French people are still loitering around the other Francophone countries, figuring out how to continue to destabilize the AES nations. That's fact. That's a fact. We'll continue to see how things develop and unfold. And we've been talking about Pan-Africanism. I think these three guys are the epicenter of Pan-Africanism in Africa in the modern era. Other nations should clap in and fall and continue to build a confederacy. We've been talking about Pan-Africanism. This is the real point of Pan-Africanism because it is an organic movement from within Africans, not control from outside. They are forging a pathway to their destiny. We'll continue to follow the development and see what is happening.
Absolutely. And can you imagine, before we pivot to another subject, can you imagine what would happen if all of the Sahel countries from Mauritania all the way to the other end
Chad.
to Chad and then across to Sudan and then Somalia.
Yes.
All across, because the Sahel region, it actually starts all the way from like the Somalia area and comes all the way to Mauritania on the other end. So it's a big. Then imagine that if all these countries form like a confederacy and then expand, then you have another block that comes from like the Southern African region and then another block. So at the end of the day, you would have these blocks of nation that can even collaborate with other blocks, and then you have a united Africa Africa that way, and then slowly you start to build a very strong African army, strong African economy, strong Africa.
Yeah.
I mean, a situation where someone can get up in the morning, you're located in Morocco, and decide that you want to drive to South Africa or take a train to South Africa, and that becomes a reality.
Yeah. Because these guys, for instance, military-wise, they're all cooperating. Economy-wise, they're all cooperating. And when it comes to even making strategic, diplomatic
decisions,
they have an understanding that they should have and speak like one. That's what we want in Africa. That's the reality of real Pan-Africanism really happening in front of us. You know, we never dreamt of this day coming because we've always heard of talk, people with their own different agendas. But now you really see people that have the interest of their people coming together and acting on behalf of their people. This is what Africans and Black people globally should be promoting as they see what is unfolding in the AES nations. Why the sellouts across the coast should keep on selling their people out. Because you come to see, I will probably Pascal Talon and the rest. Those are the cheap ones that I believe they don't even have any shame in the 21st century. No shame. Selling out your own people, working on behalf of others. You've just made us look as if we came to this world to serve others. They just collect your raw material and resources. And you know what is so funny about Africans is it pains precisely these leaders. Let me give you one good example. Look at Mobutu Sese Seko. All the wealth that he took, the trillions upon trillions of dollars that he implanted in Belgium and Europe, where is that money? When you steal the money, you come and save it in the West. There you go, take it back. They don't give you. You drain your nations and they take the money and stash it in the West. They use it in the West to build their economy, but then we turn back and claim that, oh, we are poor, or we are blame who? Who should we blame? That's what they've been using all these their puppets and slave boys, and that's what they've been doing to Africa. The amount of trillions of dollars that Mobutu Seseko took out of Congo. But where's the money? It's gone.
Gone.
In the most private banks.
And Chief, there is an educational moment here. There is when Putin came to power, he was very dissatisfied with the fact that the West had helped to collapse the USSR. So he started to build his country, but it was very difficult for him to operate to do everything in every sector. One of the areas where he received a very strong opposition to was these individuals that you call they're almost like elites, but there was a terminology.
The oligarchs.
Yes, exactly. That's the terminology that the West tends to use. So it was very difficult to go to really control them, because they had a lot of money and they could wield power at will. So the West always uses them because they had a lot of that money was invested. So when the USSR collapsed, these individuals took their monies and moved to the West. They even they control a lot of Russian resources that are today nationalized. So, but that is how they made a lot of their money, by taking a lot of the money that was owned by the Russian state, in which was under their control, and moving it to the West. So they used those finances to influence events in Russia. So they were like almost like the untouchables inside Russia. So what happened with the Ukrainian war is there were all these hundreds of sanctions that were, including even sanctioning Russian culture, sanctioning every Russians from participating. I'm giving just the ones that look stupid. Sanctioning Russians from participating in the Olympics and things like that. Sanctioning Russian books and prominent. It's almost like you sanction Shakespeare. So sanctioning prominent Russians that have been at the level of Shakespeare.
Taking of Russian monuments in the European nations that fought for the liberation of Europe.
Exactly. So when these individuals were equally, because those sanctions is equally impacted them. So, but before the sanctions could go into effect, they pull out all of their resources and all of their monies from the West and took it back into Russia. So what has happened now is that Russia has become so liquid. So because with all of the money they started to think about, what can we do with all of this cash? So then they started to invest that money in Russia. Now, in the last 2 years, the Russian economy has grown for more than 2% in growth. Meanwhile, European economies have
it's 5%. They're projecting 7% growth by the end of the year.
In this year, exactly, and going into next.
Exactly. Even though all the sanctions, the most sanctioned nation in the world. You know what, comrade.
So let me quickly just drop this, comrade. Then you go to the conclusion of what I was trying to say here is that these African leaders that are stealing this money and putting it into Europe, this is opportunity cost, money that would have been invested in their country and growing their economy. So what we're noticing with Russia right now is the growth that such capital influx has brought. So by these leaders now bringing in back all those monies that they stashed in Western economies, it could make a significant impact if you really do love your country. So sorry, you go ahead. I thought I.
No, sorry. I was just saying that I think our next live will be the implications of the Russia-Ukraine war on a global scale. We'll work on that and come and really talk on that particular topic. It's a whole topic of its own. That's a whole beast of its own. What the ramifications of this war, how it has the psychological, economic, military shakeups that has taken place globally, from the Far East right through Latin America. We'll handle that topic on its own in our next outing. Okay, going back to let's go back to our topic of discussion now. We move now to, there's one key person I wanted to talk about. We've seen things unfolding in Kenya. I want us to talk about the man who speaks game but does the total opposite. What can you say about Ruto's president, Kenya, and Ruto's presidency? How has that positively or negatively impacted the liberation of Africa? I first go from liberation, not talk about economy, the liberation of Africa. What has his presidency, how has his presidency impacted African nations? Because there are alterations that people make that has a consequence. So how do you see his presidency? What can you say about Ruto?
Yeah, yes, sir. That's a great question, and Chief.
Mhm.
Let's look at the background for which he came to power. Um, when Uhuru Kenyatta, his term of office was over,
Mhm.
and this guy had always wanted power. I mean, Ruto. He's always. I mean, he went from I think was a teacher at one point to
Mhm.
parliament, and then from parliament he was a vice president for a very long time, and then before becoming president. So
Mhm.
during when he came to power, one of the things that happened right before the start of his presidency, he did something. I mean, by going to Europe and telling them on the first of all, we should understand that a lot of these guys, it seems that there is a huge power that is behind the scenes. I'm trying to not become what is the word that is generally used here, that you talk about something that just sounds out of the ordinary or even crazy. It
Yep.
seems like, because even when you come to the US, if you really look at things the way they are functioning, there is an invisible hand that is actually visible to some people that is
Yep.
moving things around. and
Yeah.
and when we talk about that, sometimes we may refer to the economic forum in Davos, we may refer to the Bilderberg group, we may refer to these other very major um, groups like these. I think it's BlackRock or any of
Yeah.
those
Yeah. Yeah.
that are behind the scenes pushing some of this agenda. So
Mhm.
that it looks like they tend to select people that will come in next to try to run and give them an agenda.
Mhm.
Then you see Ruto comes in and he speaks against the things that, I mean, the background of his coming in, there is COVID that happens, and during
Mhm.
COVID there is lockdown, so business is not really working. Business is
Yep.
not the economic machinery is not moving. So a lot of this economic stagnation. So with that economic stagnation, you have a situation where they face liquidity problems. So they had to borrow significantly from the IMF and also from the World Bank. Um, and when they did borrow, those did not necessarily come with a huge number of conditions, because those were under some COVID protected kind of borrowing at the time, because
Mhm.
so
Yep.
many of the Western countries did it as well.
Mhm.
And not just that. So after COVID, a lot of economies were then struggling so they had to do what they call deficit spending
Mhm.
to try to jumpstart their economy. So that borrowing even continued. So he comes in, and instead of trying to reduce the debt, at this time, it looks like first of all, he's speaking in both sides of his mouth.
Yep.
We first thought that this was a huge, given the way that he spoke against the hegemon
Mhm.
and Western hegemony. We thought maybe Kenya had finally liberated itself, and then all of
Yep.
a sudden, you start to watch the policies that he starts to put in place. You have a situation where the president comes in and has an agreement with the IMF, and that agreement basically, like you spoke very eloquently previously on this subject matter regarding the terms that the IMF would usually put on you, um, where you have I mean, it is, every country should know this, where basically they give you this loan, they propose this structural adjustment program, which includes the privatization of your state-owned resources, and those state-owned resources, they bring in these Western companies to then own those previously, to buy them, because now you've privatized them.
Yep.
When they buy them, then they now gain control of your economy, because
Yep.
now If you look at what happened, you gave the example of what happened in Cameroon. They privatized the electrical grid,
Yeah,
so which was now owned by some company called Oneo or something like that.
yeah.
And they privatized their water supply to another
CDC
foreign
was
company.
CDC is not even something that we own.
So they privatize all those companies. So the Western companies now come in. They own the major strategic resources of the country,
Yeah.
basically. So they push you to kind of implement all these other kind rules that would then strangulate your economy, because
Yeah.
the Kenyans went out to protest. There were taxes that were levied on bread, which was previously not up to like 25%. Taxes were levied on women's sanitary
Yeah.
supplies. Taxes were levied
Diapers.
on diapers, on and all kinds of minor. We're not even talking about the major issues. So this was
School
actually,
fees was up.
and exactly. So anyone looking at this from the outside will know that this was meant to strangulate the
Yeah.
economy. And by when they come in and they strangulate your economy, now that you are now under their yoke. I mean, then he goes on.
All these austerity measures that they were tying Kenya on was they borrowed money from IMF. Even World Bank. But can you imagine when two predators they are going around and having these predatory monetary policies in the world? When World Bank saw what they were doing, they warned Kenya that what IMF is doing to you is not going to end out well. A couple of years back, they warned Kenya. And you see, the point is this. As one of I always call them prophets, Dr. Arikana, she said, you give your own kind loans at the 1% level. You come to Africa, you give them loans at 15, 20, 25%. Then you sit back and watch, knowing fully well that they're going to default on those loans, or they're going to pay just the interest. They can't pay off the loan. You watch them as they struggle. Then the moment that it's like they are going on default, you come in now and you hammer the austerity measures, telling them that you have to restructure, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to put. That's what happened to Kenya. And you see, they strangulated Ruto because I call it buck breaking. It's just like during the slave trade era, when in the plantations, a slave that is the strongest, for them to send a message through that plantation is to humiliate the slave, torture him, even rape the slave in front of the plantation for the others to see, breaking them psychologically. That's the term I used to use. They used to use the term buck breaking. So what they're doing to Ruto is because he came out charging and he was talking the game that he was talking, but they knew where to grab him by the balls. So what you see happening to him is now, okay, it's time to pay up.
And in addition to that, Kenya had been growing like about 4-5%. One of the fastest growing countries in Africa. In East Africa, he was the fastest growing country. So, and you and I talked about this at one point or the other, where at any time when the hegemon sees you growing and knowing that you're going to be better, then they find a way. They find a way to bring you down. So I think in addition to what you said, in addition to trying to put Ruto in his place, they were also trying. I mean, bring down the Zimbabwean economy, bring down the Kenyan economy, bring down. At the end of the day, Africa will never really make progress. So it's a concerted agenda.
It's an agenda. And what he was saying, I believe what you see happening. For instance, you heard him coming out to even condemn the AAS guys. He condemned them when he knew that those guys were fighting for the heart and soul of the nation.
He became a puppet.
Yep. That's how he started taming him. When he was hitting the wall stage and talking big. Now they started telling him that, look, no, you are going. We can default your economy. No, I mean, he even invite. That's all the countries that I think this guy visited. The foreign secretary of Russia, the foreign minister of Russia, Lavrov.
Lavrov.
Yeah, he visited Kenya. Iran also, I think he visited Kenya also, and then Ethiopia and one other country, African country. So I'm sure that they had to tell him, hey boy, you have to do this or else we're going to come after economy. You owe us, so you pay up. So I see what happened to him. Even the statement that he came and made concerning
Israel.
Israel, yes.
Yes.
It is. I don't think it's from. It's what they call the bulk breaking. They see someone that comes out with dynamism that you can change the course of your people and their mindset. He even went out and said people who are banging, who are trading in dollars, they should be very careful. So all those statements that he made, that is them coming to bite him on his butt. I would see Ruto Ruto is sitting on a very bad spot. We call him Sellout, but if you look at it very well, the politics behind this whole thing, him making such declarations and proclamations, it's not him saying that. They're telling him that go out and make these statements.
Yeah, if you look at the way, if you look at the images that the moment that it was Parliament passed that bill, the number of people that came on the streets, because this was something that did not impact the aristocrats. The aristocracy in Kenya were not impacted. All these taxes were placed. The burden of payment of the taxes were all on mostly regular people.
Yeah.
So the number of people that came on the street gave the indication, or first when I saw the images initially, I had thought that it was actually South Africa. It was after investigation that I knew that I came to the understanding that it was Kenya, because the crowd was huge. So it informed the decision makers that are behind him that if he did not calm this down, then basically he was not going to be in office. And there was an understanding that if he's not in office and he's their tool, they may have someone else that will come in and then they would lose Kenya. And Kenya is also not just a strategic location. I mean, look at China is right there not China. Kenya is right there facing the east, going into, most of these
Saudi
countries
Arabia and the rest.
Right. So that's a strategic location. Now they've even gone to the extent of naming Kenya a non-NATO member ally. So whatever
that is still, you see, that is still coercion. You know what? As we continue to speak now, there are things that we can't understand. Ruto's heart is in the right spot, but they are trying to organize what they call the Orange Revolution in Kenya. They put those austerity measures in Kenya, knowing fully whether the population is going to incite the population. They knew the back, and then my own take is this: it is a coordinated attack on Ruto. Because he was challenging them even in their forums, he was saying his mind, and he told them the last economic forum I had in France, you cannot continue to do that to us. If you really want to, if you claim that you want to help us, take off all these loans. Some of those loans he inherited them. So my take, the way I'll analyze this is this: Ruto's heart is in the right place. They might call him, but I believe that his heart was in the right place when he came in. But knowing full well that they can collapse his government economically and default his economy, because it was also having a good relationship with China. They have fast rails built by China. So they were like, you need to pay off this or you're going to default. He was going to default. But when they said all those indexes, economic indexes, they know how you're going to operate. Now, They push these austerity measures that you have to implement on these people, knowing that there will be a revolt. They go back and they sponsor that to take him out. Probably I think that there are terms that they might be pushing on him in Ruto, and Ruto is refusing.
I mean, I would not deny anything that you've said. You can never trust this hegemon or the West. Look at what they go to Ukraine and they set Ukraine up against Russia. They go to Taiwan and they make Taiwan their friends, and they set Taiwan against China.
Against China. Look at Sudan. They pretended that they had a revolution in Sudan.
Exactly.
But it was an orange revolution to put in their own person to control the nation. So
this guy who was vice president of Sudan, now that you mentioned Sudan, chief, he was the leader who was in South Sudan burning villages and killing South Sudanese, and so basically he was their tool. And then they come in and then they negotiate a way that there was some kind of a power sharing in Sudan. Yeah. Then when the Sudanese president himself decided that no, this is not a good arrangement, let's have all of those forces, the rapid intervention forces that you have under your control, let's integrate them into the government so the government can become under the control of the government. So now they use, I'm still trying to make the point that we're in Kenya, but then they use the forces or the intervention forces against the government forces, and now they put them together and then they're fighting each other. So
sponsored don't forget one of their proxies, the Western proxies, United Arab Emirates. They have a lot of dirty hand in Africa.
Oh, absolutely. They're the conduit.
We forget those hands.
Oh, they are the money conduit. For all of them, they are the money conduit from
UAE,
taking down UAE and even Qatar.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's where all of the money moved from taking down Gaddafi. That's how all of the funding came through.
Yep.
So,
you see, so they used UAE in this case to create that chaos in Sudan. They used UAE to create that chaos in Sudan because this guy was RSF, the Rapid Forces. His allegiance is the UAE, and the UAE is a partner, a staunch partner of the West. So that's the proxy that they use.
And because the government was negotiating a Russian military base
to build a base and a port in Sudan. So when you look at this case in Kenya, it is because initially I was like, is Ruto a sellout? But as you and I keep on talking, I'm beginning to realize that was a setup. They set it up because those measures that Ruto put on the population was not Ruto's terms. It is the IMF terms, knowing fully whether it's going to lead to a revolt. But who are the ones sponsoring that revolt on the streets? Who are the ones engineering it? Look, if you go follow the money, look at the NGOs in that country. That's soft power. Look at the NGOs and their role in the revolution in Kenya. You will see a hand in it. When you look at Sudan, it was the revolution policy took out Umar Bashir. Wasn't it Gelala led it? But who ended up controlling Sudan? Is it the people? No. That's the so-called the issue on the color revolution. I think Ruto was set up because those Australians had been told by the IMF that he has to implement, and they know fully that when it's just like let me give an example. Look at how the cabals work. Look at how these jackals work. Do you know that every time in South Africa, when they press hard on land reforms, that's when xenophobia kicks up? It's hard now. I bet you. When the issue of land, 3 consecutive, I've monitored it and I've studied it 3 consecutive times. When the issue on land reform comes up, xenophobia attack starts up. Who is stirring the pot?
Yeah, there are some powerful forces on the ground there that I mean, like look at right now, the African National Congress did not get enough votes to be able to form a government by themselves.
We're
So
going to touch on that also.
they ended up going an ally with the Democratic Alliance. The Democratic Alliance now, it's a very Western. Basically, they're located in the Western Cape. A lot of their support is in the Western Cape, which is a very Western foothold.
They came to the US to raise funds.
See that. So now you see a situation where basically slowly South Africa might be slowly they might use South Africans to then, how do I say that? They may use their control to control South Africa, just like get a puppet. If South Africa is not careful,
and rob bricks from inside South Africa.
Exactly. Because look at very good diplomats like Narendi Pandor, who was not even nominated as minister anymore, just because when they go to that power sharing structure in parliamentary democracy, when you have to, for me to be able to form a government, we have to negotiate that I'll give you this particular position post within the ministry, and then I'll take these other ones, and then you accept to form a government with me. So as a result of that, they now control some really key ministerial positions of ministers, like then foreign secretary, which is very important. So which means therefore that may impact the BRICS, that may impact the Palestinian relation, the stuff that has been happening with the IC, the International Criminal Court, and the International Court of Justice. So the implications to these things that we all as Africans need to continue to concern ourselves with, the fact that if we're not careful, they use people that are us to control us in one way.
That's a game. That's a game.
Just like you were talking about Ruto.
Yeah, Ruto might have come with good intentions, but because of the way he was trying to get out of the Western hands, because the austerity measures were not passed by the parliament. These are things that were imposed. They just brought it down on the people. It wasn't debated. It wasn't negotiated, knowing fully well that it was going to stir up some, problems in the population. And when it stirs up the pot in the population, who are the ones sponsoring and pushing those guys on the streets? Follow the money. Look at the NGOs. Look at where that's why that's the soft power that the Westerners will in nations, because they want him to leave so that they can get a puppet who will come back and do the bidding of the West. Ruto, his heart was on a good spot. We might see him as a sellout now, but if you go deep within, you will find out that he is doing things that they had told him that that's what he was going to be doing before he came to power, because he was talking the good talk and they had to emasculate him and break him. And that's what you're seeing happening to him. The mid to long term is to kick him out. It's coming. He will hardly survive it, probably because he's not ready to dance to their tune. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, the revolutionaries are now calling for his resignation.
Are they? I will refuse that. But who is controlling the revolution?
Who is behind the call?
Who is behind it? Follow the money. Look at the NGOs. There are NGOs in Kenya standing behind this. Who are the ones calling it? Let's open up our minds and see. There's a lot. They project them as revolutionaries, project them that they have a legitimate cause or valid reason to revolt. But what triggered it? Do you think is Ruto initiated that austerity measures? No. IMF or did it, and they knew the outcome. And they're the ones pushing it from behind. Because they want Ruto out to get their puppet that's coming up to the bidding to the West. That's the game. And we have to open up our minds and understand. A logical nation will sit back and look at things and have a resolution or a solution that's going to come from within their country. Technically, I don't think Ruto decided to sell his country out. They called him all around the place, taking him to the West, bringing him to White House, all those things.
Yeah, the question I even have is, what does it even mean to be a non-NATO member ally? Does that mean therefore that they start to use you and supply you with these NATO weapons and make your country military?
They'll use you and your military to attack those who are against them. That's it. What else? What's the benefit? NATO is a pariah globally now.
Because now they will start to send NATO forces to come and train, pretending to train your force, train you.
They are already but they'll use them for their own purpose.
And for their own purpose, and then they come in they build a military base there to be observing other African countries and become like spy agencies.
There are British military bases in Kenya as we speak. There are British military bases in Kenya. How many African military bases are in any country in the world? You name it. You tell me. What do we need military bases in Africa for? How many of them are how many African military bases are out of Africa? And then you see all these things going on. We have to open up. When did ECOWAS send forces to fight the terrorists in Niger, in Burkina Faso, in Mali, Sahel? When?
And why doesn't even Nigeria fight Boko Haram? That has been a problem on their territory for the longest time.
They are putting force to go and move for a president of another country, Niger, showing still where that ECOWAS is not African. It's not African. Let's be clear about that. And when you hear those guys holding their grass, they're not going back to ECOWAS, they know where they are coming from. They'll dissolve that nonsense. It doesn't serve Africans anything. We've gone around, gone to Kenya, because I want us to dissect this issue on Kenya. Ruto, the IMF has used their hammer on him, and the mid to long term is to kick him out. But I think Ruto has a good intention for his country. That riot on the street is not an organic riot. They might be innocently, Kenya might be innocently on the street, but the powers behind that riot is more than what you can see. We've seen it play in Africa across the territory for a very long time. And I give you two examples, case in point. Where do you see? Let's go back even to Senegal. The riot on the streets on Senegal was organic. That's why they had to sit power. They have to tell this market that get out. We cannot lose Senegal. You get out. We cannot lose Senegal. Because now they will control those guys who came in. The riot in Sudan, it looked organic, but it was a soft coup, Orange Revolution. And that's why they took over Sudan. The cabals took over Sudan. The same thing you see, because let's not Ruto must go. Who is going to come in? Who is going to serve? Ruto came in to serve his country, but they are pulling him by the nose. We have to see it that way. You talk and go down to, as we said, let's touch on South Africa. We think of wrapping up stuff. You see the election in South Africa till tomorrow. There's a lot that might come to pass. If you ask my personal opinion, let them check on the softwares. If they use electronic voting tools, they check on the softwares of those voting tools. Areas that Malema dominated, he lost till now. Malema is short of words how he lost those areas. DA got more than enough vote that he ever thought of. Even areas that he didn't control, he didn't have any hold on. Then they pushed another factor in and bloated him, the former president, Jacob Zuma, to divide and fracture South Africa and weaken its influence. But I will tell you something. That election was not, it doesn't reflect South African people talking. No. South Africans did not speak. They voted, the voting box and the software spoke. It goes deep. And if you ask my opinion, I'll tell you, Israel might have a hand in it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Because how come a very effective diplomat like Narendra Pando, that everybody just loves around the world, how come she was like one
They
of the
let, they
first?
let her go.
They let her go. Exactly.
Then DA from nowhere got a lot of vote that he could negotiate his way into. You know that DA raised all his funds in the West? They raised all their funds in the West, US and Europe. And DA has strong ties with Israel.
You know, people like maybe Oliver Tambo and the rest, Nelson Mandela and Stephen Biko and the rest, when they sit in their graves and see how their country is being, because I cannot believe that. Personally, if I had been in their situation, there would be no way I would rather let a party who is like the worst of the worst, like the Zumas, and
I'm
even
telling you,
run South Africa than go take money from the West so that way I can become their puppet against my own country that has fought for. I mean, it was over 100 years because they started this
DA
thing.
is a racist. The backers of DA, I didn't know the racist white South African. Those who are backing
Yeah,
it.
yeah, they are mostly their stronghold is in
Yeah,
Cape Town and Western Cape.
yeah,
That is where Western Cape, which is predominantly Europeans
yeah.
of population wise.
There are some areas where they got votes, black enclaves where they got vote that people are still asking, how did it happen? Till now, they are not. They don't get it. They don't understand. Because even if we count on a total entire voting block, they could not come up to 20%. They would not come up with 20% of votes. If they count even the Cape and the Western Cape, if everybody had voted, or which not everybody must have voted for them. So there are coups in various forms, power grab in various forms. That's why you see certain things that I've always looked at it and I was like, if you don't have that integrity of your vote, your softwares managing your elections, they can tamper with from anywhere.
Yeah, and there's a movie, I forget the name of that movie in this country, how you can actually manipulate those software for those
Of course,
voting machines.
when
Yeah,
the results came out, I just laughed. I said, these people don't know what has hit them. They don't know what has hit them because even till now, my is not understanding. If you ask me, I don't know. I don't know how it happened. I don't know how it happened. Areas that he knew he had them in their palms. He lost in those areas. Areas where they never understood. DA was emerging in those areas. But even if he had some few votes there, but the people where there was an overwhelming vote on other people, but they got those areas. From nowhere to power sharing and having a heavy say in it. And they have a very clear policy with the DA party. We are pro-Israel. So you can see how the game is being played. That's why I'm saying at times we just look at things in Africa. It's not like black and white the way we see it. No, it isn't. The game plan is Ruto attacks in the dollars. He goes in front of the World Economic Forum and he speaks on behalf of his people. Third, he talks about Africans. Africans should stop going to these places and then bundle them all in one bus and send them. With that mindset, what is going to do? That's why what has happened to Ruto is breaking him. They're breaking him into pieces in front of our eyes to humiliate him that you don't speak like that to us. Because it's a price to pay. That's one. And they're coming for the jugular. The people might be on the streets protesting. But let's wait and see who is going to come after Ruto. And let's watch his move. That's where you see where the rubber meets the road. They tried the same color revolution in Georgia. It failed because they were gunning for creating a color revolution to topple the current presence in Georgia now. They are either being neutral or pro-Russian.
Yeah, they were trying to pass the law there that will say that if you
Foreign,
receive,
foreign agent law.
yeah, and yeah, so that generated a lot of protests, especially from.
Do you know we're protesting a handful of people? How can you? Because in Ambazonia, we're going to pass that law. Foreign agent law. The law was this: every NGO in your country will declare their funds and how they're using that money in your country.
Yeah.
We have it here in the States. Some European nations have it. But Georgia was trying to pass that law. The EU was warning Georgia not to, because the NGOs are the soft, the underbelly of taking out their country.
Yeah, previously there used to be all these secret services like the
Look,
CIA that would do the dirty work. Now
you
they're going
see it, all these Red Cross, you see it, and all these, these are the ones.
Center for the Advancement of Democracy. You're thinking to yourself,
Democracy, all those things you get, you have United Nations development. Those are the underbelly.
yeah, even the United Nations. If you remember, there was an image where a United Nations vehicle had an accident, and the content of the vehicle were all coltan that they were using UN vehicles to transport coltan.
There was one also in Congo, Diamond in Congo that fell. No, it was a drone in Diamond, full of diamond. I was UN drone that was pretending to be dropping blood over. Look, we have to really be educating our people, because if we don't do that, someone asked a question. Let me pull up this question and let's talk about it, and we can close the chapter. We've touched on. That's why I'm saying that the Kenyan issue, even though, because when you look at the way Ruto came in, the dynamics that he came in, the things he said, even in close quarters, and then you cannot. They turned him to be an agent of double speak, because the threat was, we can collapse your government and take you out anytime. That's why he started making some controversial statements. But still, yet, they realize that Ruto is not a type of person that you can trust. If he gets out of your hooks, he can flip. That's why they have to make sure that they utilize these austerity measures to stimulate a revolution on the street, to bring in their own candidate that's going to serve the West. That's the bottom line. That's what's happening in Kenya. We call him sellout, yes, but as you and I keep on analyzing this whole thing, I start looking at the dynamics as to where he started and what is happening and where this whole thing is going to. I begin to realize that there is a hand behind it. It's because Ruto's heart was in the right place, and they pushed him. This guy asked a question. Let me pull up this question. Let's talk about it. I know you're tired and you're about an hour ahead of me. He asked this question: why can African countries not print their money and improve on their infrastructure and domestic production, just like South Korea did? Thanks. That's a good question. I don't know what you can delve into this. I'll just chime in a little bit.
Okay, Chief. There are several aspects to this. One of which, let's begin with the first one, being the fact that when you the reason that the US can just print money is because of the fact that their currency acts as a reserve currency, which means globally, which means that it receives that global acceptance, and therefore the weight of the strength is provided by the fact that a lot of globally are holding that currency. So a lot of people trust the currency. Even when they flood the market with that currency, there is still trust behind it. So sometimes the US would actually buy back its own currency to reduce the flow of the currency on the system, just to continue to keep its value. The second aspect is that when you print money, then basically it becomes just a piece of paper. There has to be something that is backing that currency, that gives that currency its value. Let's say, for example, if you hold $1 million worth of gold and you print paper, you print fiat currency for $1 million worth, investors or those that are looking towards doing anything about your currency, they trust that currency because it's actually there's something behind it. In this case, gold. So when you do just print currency money, then you can just use it to buy anything because the person receiving that currency will not trust that currency, knowing that that was just a piece of paper. There's nothing that is backing it. So as a result of that, currencies are printed supported by either economic activities, like the US economy is strong enough to support the printing of the currency. That's everybody is now really concerned about the fact that the printing of the currency has increased beyond what the economic activities can support. Because the
And
reason,
sorry, let me add one little thing also again. The risk now is that most countries are de-dollarizing. They are backing away from the dollar. So even to get the inflation rate down, it might take a while because countries are now they are no more respecting the US as their reserve currency. Because at one point in time, people could always trade they must always do transactions in dollar. Like my naira and I have to buy stuff in with the South African rand, I have to use the dollar as the exchange currency. But now most people are already de-dollarizing. That's going to have a mid long-term effect on the American economy. I'm just trying to add that layer of what you are trying to see. You're trying to say, well, we hear about de-dollarization. So the effect is that the value of a dollar that the dollar held, because people needed it all the time to do transactions. Now people can now start trading with their own currency. They don't need a dollar for that. So it will be floating in the market, has no value, because the value was the acceptance and the fact that they will always be trade and they'll always use it to trade, intertrade. But now when people stop using it, now it will be out there without the value starts going down. The value will start going down. And then in the long run, it will start affecting the economy. It will be like a trickle down effect. So one of the biggest threats that is occurring is the aspect of de-dollarization that's happening globally now. Sorry, I did cut you in. Sorry, I just had to bring that point in.
Oh no, good point, good intervention, Chief. And the true value. One of the things that you should be aware of too is that when you just print money, it will it will generally not have any value. The thing that we envisage that would happen in Ambazonia is that upon independence, there is the thought about relying first on the Biafra currency. In this case, perhaps the naira, allowing it to become a currency in Ambazonia for the use. Because what might happen is that Republic make or its master francs may cut off supply of the CFA currency into Ambazonia as part of the sanctions that they will put on Ambazonia in order not to make the Ambazonia economy succeed. So there will be that, maybe this might be a lot of disclosure, but there may be that need to tilt the economy, shift the economy towards the Biafra economy, so that way we allow for the use of the naira within the Ambazonia economy in the event that La République does or France does cut off supply to basically cause bring down the economy of Ambazonia. That's one. And then another aspect of this is that you did say that South Korea had to print some money. In fact, I may have to disagree with you on that. The reason being that after the Korean War and also even the Japanese War, the U.S. had come in and really supported by providing enormous amount for the reconstruction of both Japan and Korea, which is what happened. There was a Marshall Plan for the reconstruction of Europe, which was largely also supported by the U.S. So the U.S. had come in and provided most of the funding that went to that. So now when you start to grow your economy, it gives you the basis for which to print additional currency. with what might happen in Ambazonia when the economy starts to take off. Then with the identification or an inventorization of the Ambazonian resources,
Resources, yeah.
that might then provide the basis for the printing of an Ambazonian currency, of the AMBA coin, or of the AMBA currency, to allow for, because then that would give investor confidence of the value of the AMBA coin, of the Ambazonia currency. Then you might start at that point start to get foreign direct investment into Ambazonia, knowing that there is the investor confidence, investor trust in both
The currency.
in the currency as well. So, but the South Korea and Japan were largely built from loans that came from the United States and Europe.
The Marshall Plan.
The Marshall Plan. There was a Marshall Plan to do that.
And just touching on this, as you rightfully said, you can't print a currency without a backing. But we might see something in the place that we have hopes, the biggest hope is the AES nations. Because as they have come together, if they have proper understanding in the Confederacy and integration of their systems, it becomes easy for them because they have their resource in their hands. And I think it's Mali and Burkina Faso that are building a gold mining plant where you tap your gold, a gold that is coming out of the country, you'll convert it into bars and be able to create a currency that will be backed by the resources. That can happen only when you have the economy in your hands. But you look at across Africa, a lot of those countries have loans. So some of those loans that you have in those countries will not even allow you to participate. Let me case in point, true value. Case in point, look at it happened recently in our time. They were trying to create what the currency they were trying to create West Africa. What was the name of it again?
ECHO.
Yep.
ECHO.
But who sabotaged it? France and Ivory Coast for a reason. They had to sabotage it. It was always almost at a point of acceptance. But they had to sabotage it because it's not an easy task for Africans to just come together and form a currency. France won't allow that to happen. You have to do it piece by piece. If we see the integration of these the AES nations fully functional, other nations might join in. And if they are coming up with a currency that they have control of their resources, their destiny in their hands, and what they have as resources, like you said in Ambazonia, we'll have resources where we can print money based on what we have and create some confidence level from foreign investors. And on our currency, the AES nations, they are now having a gold factory that will be purifying their gold. They can back their currency with their gold, and gold is a standard global resource that you can use as a legal and a backing tool for your currency. That's what I am foreseeing happening there. And then it can slowly spread out. But just saying that African nations should come together, we know the strings that we find ourselves in. We are in the Ambazonian War of Liberation because of what we know, that those who have the key to Liberia Cameroon that is strangulating us is not them. So it's easy for us to have this discussion, but when you have that, we start going down to a deep down analysis, you realize that there are technically you realize the 14 African nations were never independent. The AES nations are the first independent Francophone nations in Africa. Total independence that you talk about, those are the first. Senegal is not independent. They still have some hooks tied to France. But that is genuine independence that they're fighting for. That since we claim we're independent, but now you see those countries claiming their total and unconditional independence. So to this question, there are lots of chains and hooks holding us. And we see these guys struggling in the Sahel region to break away from it. And I believe that there are countries in that West Africa and that Sahel, they are watching. Once something comes up, Once they struggle and come up with something backed by their currency and they can contain and control it, I can bet you that other countries they're going to collapse. I mean, other countries are going to leave that thing and join and figure out how to start using it. There is hope. So to this question, it's not easy for it to happen like that because we know that we are still enslaved economically. There are hands that are holding us behind that we cannot turn or move in a certain way unless you seize your account. Look at Gabon. The guy who took over the power from Gabon that was a transfer of power. It was, I can call it, that was a coup because now it's in the pockets of the West. So, Chairman, I know you will late. I just wanted to pull out this question and
and let me quickly add one aspect to that question. It's also not as easy as just printing money and using it. International trade tends to not really be done by actual physical currency. International trade happens when one country purchases your currency and then keeps it on international reserve, and then you can send goods and whether you're performing services to that country, and then the country will pay for it by just like journal entries, like the SWIFT we talked about earlier on. The SWIFT allows for these transactions to happen through like accounting entries on the ledger. So a country will not trust to send you goods when you're going to be paying by just piece of paper that you just printed. So you have exactly. So they have to have actually purchased your currency and held them in their reserves as they would use as payments for the goods that you send to them. But for them to have confidence in that currency, the currency cannot just be pieces of papers that are not backed by anything. They have to have value. And by the Sahel countries coming together as three powerful economies, and they are equally very goal oriented, goal endowed. That is to say, they also have gold deposits and other minerals that they can use to state that yes, the currency is supported by actual physical gold. So that builds trust. So another country will purchase their currency to put for international buying and selling settlement in that case. So there's a lot of other aspects to this, comrade. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Thanks. That's a very good point. Thanks for making people. I mean, for bringing clarity on that. You're right. It's a very good point. So at least it's an educational tool from an African perspective. We will get there. And before we end this live, I tend to always look at certain things from my own perspective. The wind of change in Africa started when Ambazonia started having real, genuine change of power. The real wind of change again in Africa, the second phase, started when we, Ambazonia, started agitating for our independence. It triggered now other real, genuine liberations in Africa. Because it's only after our liberation, our quest for liberation within Ambazonia that you saw Mali came up and the guys took power. Not long. The guy from Gambia, though his own is questionable. Then you saw Burkina Faso, 1, 2. Then you saw Niger, and we believe that we are always the pace setters. If anybody is doubting, not too long from now we'll be a free nation. Some people ask how, but it's coming. It's not going to take long. But you have to stay hopeful. It boils down to one thing. I don't know if I have to add a word on this before we round up. I know it's been about 2 hours. I want to touch a little bit on the last thing I want to touch on before we go. All the decisions and the policies that are coming out of our territory, what can you make about that? Currently, we are at war, in this war of liberation. What can you make about that? That the AGOVC is putting in place certain policies. Can you put context to that and let our people understand why we go to that level to make some of those policies?
Right. I have had individuals actually call me and are very uncertain and express their uncertainty about some of the policies that the AGOC has put in place. Um, I don't mean to undermine the sacrifices that our people have done and are doing, but I think that we are in a very good place in terms of the fact that the war that is going on in Ukraine, by comparison, each day Ukraine is losing about 22,000 to 2,300 individuals
Yes.
each day, not even a month. This is like each day.
Yep.
You have situations in armed struggle or say freedom struggle where these things have gone for years and years and years, and you do not see any any um, any hope at the end.
Yep.
If
Yep.
you look at the Ambazonia case, our case where we are 7 years later, we've made tremendous strides that have taken some
Yep.
other countries or some other freedom um, movements years, 10, 15, 20 years to get just to where we are
Arrive
today.
to where we are. Yes.
It is actually rather unfortunate that we still do not believe in ourselves, because
Yep.
if we did, I went to an event last weekend, and that event, they have this farote stuff that goes on. At the end of the day, there is just, I mean, money lying everywhere on the floor. And I'm thinking to myself, if just within this one single event, and there may be four of such events happening in just one weekend among Ambazonians,
Yes.
if all of these events, if you all can just maybe make the commitment of just $100, or
Yes.
even say $300 per year per person in just one such event, and then multiply that by four in one city, multiply that by how many in other cities within just the United States, we should be able to bring this to an end within a very short space of time. Because
Yeah.
if you look at where La République du Cameroon's economy is, first, they've had so much debt over the years, and their tax base has dropped significantly because unemployment is very significantly very high. So there isn't really, to be honest, there really isn't any tax base, because that's how you raise your revenue,
Hmm.
and part of that revenue will go towards the your debt servicing. And so to understand that they have a huge debt burden and need a lot of money to service the interest expense on that debt burden. So that is one of the things that will kill their economy, and that tends to weaken the economy and not leave them enough to spend to fund the war. So that's
Hmm.
one aspect. The other aspect is that you only have so many people that want to volunteer to join your military.
Yep.
Um, La République is a big country. Ambazonia is a big country, so they need a huge military to be able to police these two countries, and they
Yep.
don't even have enough to police just their own country.
Yep.
Boko Haram comes in from the north and basically just wipe out the northern provinces or their northern
Hmm.
regions unopposed, and they're the ones that actually decide to retreat whenever they want to because they have no opposition.
Yep.
Um, so we are at a place where their economy is not only weak, but the administration is made up of like really old people who have no, I mean, basically leading the country to their grave, have no other vision, have no other thought about the country. Their military is reduced because not so many people are wanting to join, and those that have joined have all basically deserted. They've escaped
Hmm.
to many other African countries because they're not, first of all, not getting paid for what they are promised.
Yep.
In so we are the place where we have all the advantages to bring this to a quick close. So what the ADF approach, the Ambazonian Governing Council approach has been, is to slowly take all these measures that they've implemented, and these measures have slowly been crippling. You may not see it, but they slowly have been crippling the Cameroonian economy. That's why they're around begging and using bribes to bribe individuals to stop here, stop there, and so slowly it will cripple the economy. And for those that are making the sacrifices on ground zero, know that these are huge sacrifices. Um,
Yep.
when the AGOC implemented the license plate stuff, they brought in all of their backing dogs from all over the place to back
The
and
Weaver birds.
the Weaver Beds essentially talked
Yeah.
about how evil these things were, and how they've done this, done that. But today, you see drivers drive from Yaoundé and they get to like Buda, and
Change
by the
their
time
place.
they change their plates in order to get
They
to
know they are
Buda,
getting to another nation.
they know they're getting to another nation, and you may not think that is a big accomplishment. That
That is a big accomplishment.
they recognize that they're entering another country at this point, so it's already making them um, becoming to accept the fact that Ambazonia will become a reality.
It's real. Yeah.
It's real. And what this also gives to the people is the fact that they know that they've accomplished something when they do those changes. Right now in the city of Abakwa, a lot of the taxis are no longer, because first of all, these taxi drivers were getting easily identified and stopped for ransom, for money that
Hmm.
the foreign occupation military was collecting from them. So now the
Yeah.
foreign occupation military can't even distinguish between a private car and a taxi. So most of the taxi drivers in Abakwa have now really adhered to. It may seem like a small accomplishment, but it is a huge accomplishment.
It's
So
huge.
so slowly the lion is getting skinned. Slowly they're
Yep.
taking it down. So at
Yep.
some point you get to a place where they will be weak enough and not be able to do anything. And that is where Russia is getting, say, Ukraine on, where Ukraine would just collapse at some point. Um,
Yep.
you will get to a place where La République du Cameroon will not be able to pay its bills, and those that are responsible will be running away from responsibilities, and the entire country there will be no sense of direction, and those that are left to fight, they would not see themselves as wanting to fight for what, and the
Yep.
entire system would come to an end. So it's just a matter of time. So what I would say is that bear with these things that are getting implemented. It is very well thought out. Sometimes
Yep.
it's thought out by our forces on the ground. They know why they do what they do, and sometimes it's thought out by the governing council as a whole and implemented. So bear with those rules that are being put in place. It is well thought out and thought out for the interest of the country. Some of it on the short run may be seen as though it is a huge burden to the people or it brings the people risk. There is no freedom that was ever granted. All freedom is taken, and it comes with
Yes.
a lot of risk. It comes with
Yep.
sweat. It comes with blood.
Yep.
You may say that we sit here and talk about these things, but everybody has a role to play. Has a role to play in terms of the fact that those that are providing, that have given up themselves to fight on our behalf. Some of us have to be some places to raise the financial support that they need in order to do the things that they need. Some of us have to play the diplomatic arrangement. Some of us, so we all have roles that we have to play in one way or we all cannot be doing the same thing. Otherwise, the other areas we will not be able to get what they need in order to for the other areas to become efficient. So bear in mind that we each have a role to play. So, but thank you, comrade. That is all that I had to say in that regard.
No, thank you very much. There is one thing. Ambazonia is becoming a reality because of the coexistence between the diaspora and the ground. No one can free Ambazonia, not just alone. The diaspora alone cannot free Ambazonia. The ground zero alone cannot free Ambazonia. You need this coalition, this cohesion together. The right people with the right mindset to free Ambazonia. That's one thing Ambazonians have to come to them to understand. And the Republic has done everything possible because they have struggled, used internal force to dissociate us from ground zero. It didn't work because they knew that if they cut us, divide us, they can successfully and confidently destroy this revolution. They have tried and it's not worked. The bond has grown stronger and stronger between the ground zero and the nationalists in the diaspora, because it's not everybody in the diaspora that is fighting for the interests of Ambazonia. The nationalists in the diaspora and the fighters from the ground zero, they are working hand in hand. And you see, you bring a great point that people should start. You sit back and you absorb the fact that Liberia Cameroon people are coming and they arrive at the borders and change their plate. It shows that we are a nation. The fact that we've said that we don't want Euro tax is starting in Mesa is going to spread across the territory because we are upholding that rule across the territory. It shows that Liberia Cameroon has Euro taxes and Ambazonia doesn't have any Euro taxes. We don't want them in our territory. This is a different nation from you people. That's the implication, the psychological implication. I think recently today I saw the president put out one of the declarations. no sale of lands to non-Ambazonians. Anybody doing that is doing it at his own risk. Any foreigner, non-Ambazonian, buying land in Ambazonia, you are doing that at your own risk. It is not your land. A decree has been put in place. Foreigners that are buying land in Ambazonia, buy at your own risk because you don't own that land. That's a decree. It is our land. Ambazonia is ours. We have suspended the sale of land to foreigners. So if you are risking and doing that, any Ambazonian that sells land to someone, any Ambazonian has the right to come to that territory and start using that land. The foreigner doesn't own land in our territory. Our fighters are dying for that land. So there's a decree that's come out. Foreigners, you don't own land in Ambazonia. Moving forward. Some of these things that we put out, that the AGOP put out, people think we are mad. Tomorrow will bring clarity to this madness. And then people will judge the reason why some of these policies have been put in place. The river birds, they sang, they went up and down, they said, oh, no more played, or put out people, but they are respecting it. And these river birds, they sing and they have no, just to show Ambazonians that these are proxy forces for the Republic of Cameroon. They sing, but they give no solutions. They sing and attack, but there is no solution to move you forward. But they pretend that they fight for you people. They are proxies, like Republic of Cameroon proxies amongst us. The policies we put today, we will continue to put mad policies. We will continue to see people who will fight us from within, but we will drag this whole thing to its logical conclusion. Comrade, I want to thank you very much. We've put in 2 hours in this conversation. We've gone around our continent, and we ended this live video talking about the policies in place, taking place in Ambazonia, and trying to bring clarity. The reason is because we are depriving an old colonial force of having any say upon us. We don't want cement plates. We have Monday as ghost town. We made that choice. We don't want cement plates in our territory. We made that choice. We don't want yellow caps in our cities. We made that choice. And then that's spread across the territory. Those laws we put in place, that is how you seize your country and prove that the enemy has no hold over you. We're getting there bit by bit. We are still crafting or coming on the issue of residence permit. In the future, our people will hear more about that from us, from the AGOC. Comrade, thanks very much. I know I'll have to let you go. If you have any last word, you can put it out to our people. If not, we will just promise our people that we'll have to come out again subsequently and also go on geopolitical analysis. So just give a last word if you mean our people so I can wrap up this live.
Yeah, thank you again for being on this platform. As always, it is an honor for me, and I always enjoyed our conversations. I think that they're necessary to continue to educate our people. I, for one, there's a lot that I used to think that the BBC was a gold standard for news all over the world until I became the news. Then I just found out just how much of
deceit
they are, that there's always an agenda behind. As a matter of fact, I don't even watch their TVs anymore just because it is meant to provide you with what they want you to know and what they want you to hear. But it's always a pleasure to be on this platform. I also wanted to use this opportunity to employ all of the Ambazonians that are located in the diaspora. We continue to count on you. There is significant hope. I think the success of this fight rests a lot on your shoulders. This is doable. You gotta believe it. It is doable. If you can put in the resources, this will be done in a very, very short time. We will not be talking about years anymore. We'll be talking about months. The challenge is that personally, I do not really think that you all have bought into the belief that this can be done. This really can be done. La République this really has already been done. We just need to bring this to the finish line. La République is too weak to fight. La République economically, militarily, even geopolitically, just because of the weakness of the masters at this particular point in time in history. So there is significant hope. You just need to make sure that you provide the resources that is needed, and this will be brought to an end. So if you need to make your payments for the liberation tax or any other kind of support, do not hesitate to reach out to any of the sources that we will put out there of the Ambazonian Governing Council. So, but remain steadfast. For those that may be watching this from ground zero, as always, we thank you for your patience and your significant sacrifices, given the conditions that you're operating under. Yet you still believe, and yet you're still making the sacrifices. So there is light at the end of the tunnel, knowing that some of this fight, when we fight, we're not fighting for ourselves. When we fight for the future of the children that are yet to be born, and those that their generations and descendants to come. So, and those in the diaspora continue to believe as well, knowing that the egg of sea is the lone person standing. If you need to provide any kind of support for refugees and so on, please do not hesitate to contact any of the egg of seas medium. So thank you again. It's an honor to be here, comrade.
Thanks very much, comrade. I don't know. I really thank you so much for sharing, these discussions with me on this platform. We do our own best, and we continue to educate our people. Ambazonians, they see this young kid, I call him kid as compared to you and I, our age, in Burkina Faso, taking the destiny of his country in his hands. We see and admire him and what they are doing. It's our own turn. We can do what they are doing. They are not different from us. We have everything that it takes to do what we are doing, that they are doing. If we heard the very beginning, at the beginning of this outing, the president said it was going to be a long, hard struggle. Don't give up. We have the capability and the ability to free that land. We have that capability, Ambazonians who believe in themselves. We've come this way, this far. We've achieved a lot within a short time. These people could believe that we can put policies in place, put laws in place, and they uphold it because our people yearn for freedom. Like you call upon the diasporans, we will not sit back and watch our people decimated and we do nothing about it. We have to keep on pushing. We have to keep on pushing till we reach the finish line. Living abroad is not our portion. The suffering that we endure abroad. Before I end this live, I want to say something. One of the fundraisers that we had, not this past one, the one before this one, I had one very senior comrade. He cried. I want to go home. He cried. He said, I'm tired. I want to go home. It really, it hit something. It really hit me so hard. Whatever we're doing out, I will tell the diasporans, it is not your home. You can't claim legitimacy. Whether you claim people's nationality, that is not your home. And you know it deep within their heart of hearts. Because some of the insults, abuses that we endure outside, walking on eggshells, then we try to claim it's our home. It's not our home. And we can make our home better. We can do it, Ambazonians. Thanks once more, comrades. And our people should hear more from us in the future. We'll continue to do this educational program, opening up our people's minds, see how things work from a geopolitical standpoint, the messaging behind certain things. We've touched upon a couple of things, and believe that we'll take one out and just touch on probably the Ukraine-Russia war and the global implications. And then we can move from there just to keep on informing our people and letting them know what is actually happening around the globe. so that we can all be informed and know how things are moving and know how the chips are moving on the chessboard. It's very important. An educated crowd makes informed decisions. So, comrade, we keep on doing our best and educating our people. I thank you so much for participating, and we keep on doing our own part. Have a good evening, comrade.
Thank you very much. A pleasure.
Thank you, comrade.